Today's video is about the difference between good pain and bad pain, and how critical it is to know that in your life, especially on a physical level when you're trying to heal and gain longevity and strength and ability. I'm Mike Stokes, and this is Wild Life Coaching. So currently I live in Northern California, and I live with nature, and I like working with my hands and building, and so now I'm a ecological general contractor, and I make these videos, and I study in all my spare time. I study human potential, but not all my spare time, but a lot of my spare time, I do other things too, like surf and kayak fish and go mushroom hunting and hang out with my wife and my baby. But what's the point of all that? The point of all that is I just was laying the context. So about 10 years ago, was it 15 now? No. 13 years ago, I completed my career as a therapeutic yoga instructor. I did 5 intensive years of work, so I worked full-time for 5 years, and then I don't know how many years of study I did before that, but 5 or more. During that time, I came to realize that for myself and for my students, that one of the most important distinctions in healing is knowing the difference between good pain and bad pain. So bad pain will obviously make you worse over time, and a good pain will heal you and make you better over time. So really simply, on a physical level, what is the distinction of let's start with a bad pain. A bad pain, so I'm just going to go with stuff that is really tangible and simple to explain. So when I was, I'll do all 3 of my main injuries. When I was 18, I broke my neck. See, 4, 5, and 6, I smushed the front half of them. Luckily, I didn't get any ambulatory issues, but the 3 vertebrae down there are misshapen, and the front of them is elongated and has parts that sort of things that are growing on them, and so it's kind of a mess in there. And then I'll just go over all my injuries. No, I'll just do that. So in the neck, so I used to have sort of a chronic pain in the neck. Or maybe I am a chronic pain in the neck. I'm not sure which. Probably a little bit of both. So, and that chronic pain was a bad kind of pain. But it was really interesting. I actually went to China in 1995, did a Qigong certification course, Wild Goose Qigong and Bagua Qigong. And then on that trip, there was, we were offered to go get this Chinese massage. And I got this Chinese massage. And my neck hurt so bad that I had them, I really wanted them to press into my middle back. Because my middle back, it just felt if you pressed in my middle back, it would release. So this guy was like, he was just, and I'm like, that's good, you can go hard, it's okay. And he went in my middle back, and it ground in, and I like felt it pop, and I was like, oh, that doesn't feel, I think I knew at the time that it was a bad pain. So then after that, my pain kind of shifted away from my neck, but I had this chronic pain in my middle back. And that chronic pain in my middle back didn't go away for over 10 years. And it's still potentially there. So since the front side of my vertebra was elongated, the back of my spine sort of went forward to compensate forward, and with that massage sort of just took it past where it was healthy. And so my neck didn't hurt as much, but my middle back was just in this chronic, awful pain every day, all the time. And that was one of the reasons I became a therapeutic yoga instructor, was to try to heal myself. So I took classes from all these world-class teachers, and and I told them about my issue, and it was just unique enough that none of them could figure it out. So anyway, so then I used to surf. I do surf all the time now, but I didn't surf for that 10-year period. But whenever I'd surf, holding my neck back with this, I would just do it one day, and then the next day I would be in pain, and so I just would stop. So I surfed. I decided to just go out of country, and I went to Costa Rica in 2003, I think, for a couple weeks, and I just decided to surf every day, twice a day, because I loved it and I missed it, and I was just going to see if I could regain it. And at the end of that, lo and behold, I had no more back pain. And what was interesting about that was a few things. One was that the bad pain that was in the middle of my back, I never experienced it while surfing. I would experience pains all kinds of other places. I'd experience pain back up in my neck. But the middle back pain that was sharp in the same place and chronic, I never felt that while I was surfing. I'd feel all kinds of other pains that I didn't like, that were uncomfortable, but that pain didn't come back. So at the end of that trip, it totally changed my life. And I realized that if you're fixated on one pain and what you're doing isn't actually making it hurt in other places, and you're just having pain in that same spot, then you have to change your technique, especially on a biomechanical level when you're just moving your body and dealing with physical movement-oriented pain. So a bad pain is in the same place again and again and again and again and again. It also is, it's generally sharp. It's generally like pointed. It can be dull and across a muscle band, but it's generally pointed in the same place. It can be along the same place again and again and again if that's a little bit longer strain. So that kind of pain is the bad pain. A good pain, it's in a different place. It's not in the place that you feel it when you're just, oh, I'm in pain again. It is generally challenging. It's generally like something that you want to avoid. It's in the moment. It's hard. It's uncomfortable. You don't like it. You avoid it. And that's the key. The key is that although the bad pain, I don't know if I said that right. I'm trying to hear myself back. But the bad pain is in one spot. It's actually less gnarly than the good pain. If you were to sustain the good pain for as long as you sustained the bad pain, it would be really intense and you'd just be emotionally fried at the end. So the good pain is a new pain. It's in a different spot, and you generally are trying to avoid it. So with the neck, I would feel these new pains in my neck, and I'd feel these pains in different parts of my shoulder, and I'd feel the pains in different parts of my back, but I just went with it. And at the end of that 2-week period, I was literally pain-free without any symptom for at least 3 weeks or 4 weeks. And then there was a sort of a learning curve. Once I learned about this idea and how I was going to have to now sort of relate with my body, then at this point, 15 years later, I know how to deal with my body. I know how to deal with my specific injuries, and I know the difference between the good pain and the bad pain, and I can't remember the last time I was stuck in a middle back pain. It just doesn't happen anymore. And emotionally, I was at the point where I thought, fuck, what am I going to do? This is so bad right now. I can't even imagine getting any older. But that's not the case anymore because I figured out how to manage it by applying this concept of good pain and bad pain. So a second injury, when I was 20, 2, 3, I used to love to play basketball, and I was playing at PE at the Berkeley sort of just PE basketball class, and my knee, instead of going like this, it went, sort of opened in and just snapped my ACL. And so now I've had that snapped ACL, and I had it repaired 20 years later. But in that knee, there would become a sharp pain that would happen. That sharp pain would happen, and I would know that it was a bad pain. So, but the good pains associated with the knee injury would be all the muscular stuff, like when I would stretch my hamstring or stretch my quad or build the muscles around my calf. That would be really good, and I would avoid those strengthening exercises. The bad pain is basically anything sharp in the knee joint. It wasn't good. The one exception to that was in my very initial training with the surgery. There was scar tissue in the knee, and we had to keep it mobile. And so that scar tissue in the knee would actually be kind of acute. So that's pretty much an exception to that. There's always a little exception if you look for it. But and then the next injury I had was when I was 25 years old. I was lifting a really big potted plant. Just powering it up, bending forward a ton, and I slipped my disc, my L4, L5. So the back of my L4, L5 is popped out and slipped and doesn't really hold together like it's supposed to in the between the two bones. So so that, again, same thing. It's sharp acute pain. It's no good. So for that particular injury, I have to use a really hard backrest. The backrests that I get from the store or whatever you buy online are crap. It has to be really solid. And that holds that back place in place so that I don't get the bad pain. And then I'll do things like plank, and I'll do lunges and stuff like that, and I'll get all the other pains associated with my hips and the strength in my core and the side muscles. All those pains are good, and they're really uncomfortable and difficult to deal with. But that sharp pain right in the back, if I'm sort of leaning back or if I'm sort of bending forward, that one's just making it worse. So I don't allow myself to go into that pain. Don't allow myself to go into the sharp pain in the neck, the sharp pain in the back, or the sharp pain in the knee. Now here's the thing. If you're working with a professional, if they don't know this principle, they may push you to go through a sharp pain. Now, I found that with yoga instructors, and hopefully physical therapists are better trained than that, but a lot of these world-class therapeutic yoga instructors didn't know how to deal with that. And frankly, we're just not very good at it, which really surprised me and took me many, many years to realize that the most important thing that I was doing was responding to the cues of my body and learning this distinction between a sharp, acute, repetitive pain in one place and a dull, diffused, new pain around it that's building muscles or stretching something out that's over tight. So, a balanced, healthy body has equal strength and flexibility. I often find that people have this misconception like, oh, I'm going to go do yoga and I'm just going to get limber. And it's nothing to do with getting limber. Every body's completely different. So a body that's very flexible, your entire yoga routine may be about gaining strength. A body that's incredibly tight is going to be more about flexibility. So, the older you get, the tighter you get, the more about flexibility it's going to be. But it's also equally about strength. The front half of your thigh may be super tight, and the back half of your hamstring or leg joint may be super weak. So you may equally want to focus on that strengthening exercise as well as the stretching exercise. And they all should hurt. It should be good pain. And there's nothing better than the saying, you got to learn to love the burn. But it's the right kind of burn. It's not the burn that's sharp. It's not the burn that's repetitive. It's not the burn that's actually aggressive. It has to be, if you're going to achieve longevity, you got to be more like a tortoise or a turtle. Maybe there's a new species called a turtle, but I'm not sure. Or maybe there'll be one in the future, which would be weird and unfortunate with genetic engineering. But either the tortoise or the turtle, they're moving really slow, right? But that slowness also aids in your awareness, in your ability to distinguish what is healthy and what is unhealthy, what is good pain and what is bad pain. So you start slow, then you can speed up later, but you got to start slow. Especially if you're like me and you tend to be like fast to begin with, you got to start slow to compensate for that speed and then come back to speed if you decide you want to come back to speed. So just a quick summary. Bad pain is in the same spot. It repeats itself, and it's usually sharp. So those are the three main indicators. Good pain is in a new spot, or a place that's very uncomfortable that you rarely touch. It's usually diffuse, and it's usually intense and uncomfortable for you, something that you avoid. So you have to stay away from the bad, move into the good, and the other thing that's critical is you have to practice leaning into these uncomfortable spaces. And just a reminder that everything is what's the word, consistent across realms. So an avoidance of good pain on a physical realm is going to translate to an avoidance of good pain on an emotional realm, is going to translate to an avoidance of good pain on a mental or spiritual realm. So if you work on any one of those levels, let's say on the spiritual realm, you start challenging your core beliefs, that's going to translate into your ability to be a little bit better to challenge the mental realm, so that you'll be a little bit more aligned with reality and less sort of in a fictional fantasy of beliefs. Basically, everybody lives to a certain degree in a fictional fantasy of beliefs. That's what's the beauty of being human. If we don't have any fictional belief structures, we're like, there's no art. There's no art to our life. And then that challenging your mental structures it will also help you to open up and heal emotional structures, which then would allow you to open up and heal physical structures. But any one of those levels where you try to challenge yourself to experience good pain, and just gently, you don't have to do it hard, just got to move a little bit. You got to be moving in the right direction. Any one of those levels are going to make you healthier and stronger, and ultimately happier. You may actually go through some dips while you're challenging long-held beliefs. That'll definitely rock your foundations. And even the physical will start to rock your foundations. That's why therapies like Rolfing are so intense, because they push you outside. When we have our physical structure is aligned with our mental structure. If you're a really shy, introverted, and generally negative person, you're going to start to sort of, like, you can't really see, but you're going to start to compress in, If you're sort of arrogant and think you know everything, you're going to kind of, start to lean back and open up. So that's why in yoga, they always try to have you be nice and centered, physical, right in the middle, straight up and down. So the physical body is consistent with the emotional, mental, and your belief structure / spiritual body. The point of what I'm trying to say in this last little segment is that any realm where you take on, stop going into bad pain and start moving into good pain, you're going to see beneficial growth on a health level, on a spirit, on a mental, emotional, relation, whatever. It's all going to get better. And you can do it in whatever realm you want to start in. You want to start in emotions, then start looking for pains that are repetitive, that are in the same place, that are sharp. So start looking for those kind of things. And then stop doing that behavior or thinking those thoughts that are associated with that, and start doing something else. Let's say you're always going to your friend's house and you talk about how your relationships are never working out, and you start to feel crappy after that interaction. Well, that's a bad pain. That's the same. It's repetitive. It's sharp as you feel a depressed state, which is intense. It's definitely, depression states are dull, but they're overwhelming. They take over the self, and in that sense, they're intense. And they're just, what was I going to say? And they're repetitive. So repetitive, sharp, and in the same place. So don't go to that person's house and have that same conversation. Go to somebody else's house and have another conversation, or do something entirely different. And then you may experience a different kind of pain. You may experience social anxiety. You may experience, a million different things. As long as it's new, and you're kind of, you're uncomfortable with it, but you're just, you're leaning into it. You can do it for 5 minutes if that's all you can manage. As long as it's new. That's the main thing. I think it's appropriate to just say, the definition of insanity, it's just really great. You hear that a lot in the 12-step programs. Definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. If you do nothing else but just try different things until things work, forget everything else I said. It doesn't matter. If you just do that, and you just keep observing whether something's working or not, and get better at observation and your feedback from your own body and your emotions, you're going to get more effective in every area of life that you're interested in being effective in. Thanks for watching. I hope I didn't ramble on too much. I know I got a little off topic here and there, but the bottom line, avoid the bad pain, go into the good pain, become more aware of the difference between the two. And if you're still watching, please subscribe below. I'd love to monetize these channels and spend more time and money making these videos interesting and compelling rather than just boring old me talking in a sauna. Take care.